All right. Hey, I'm John Gibson, and I'm excited to talk with you today. Today, I want to get into the 3 ways to fix the PCOS metabolism. Now, if you don't know who I am, I have been working with women who have struggled to lose weight with PCOS for several years now. And the first person I worked with was my wife. I helped her lose over 70 pounds in just 6 months. But today, I want to dive into something that a lot of people have believed for a long time and is, in fact, true. And it's this. Here's the truth, okay? The average BMR. So I need you to understand what BMR stands for. BMR stands for basal metabolic rate. And so we've got different women with different metabolisms, right? And so the basal metabolic rate is literally the amount of calories you burn when you're sitting and doing nothing, right? It's when you're sleeping. It's when you're sitting in a chair. It's actually more laying down is probably a better example of what the BMR is. So this is the average calories you burn just to stay alive. Okay, does that make sense? It's not necessarily the calories you use to move around or to eat or different things like that. It's just the calories you burn to sit and do nothing. Okay, now the average woman who has a normal menstrual cycle, who's got normal health, all those things, their average BMR is around 1,800 calories. So sitting and doing nothing, they're burning about 1,800 calories. Okay, so let's put that into perspective. Now, the average BMR for somebody with PCOS, okay, is about 1,500 calories. So you're burning about 300 calories less per day. So put that into context again. Now, think about food-wise. If you were to eat just an extra 2 slices of bread, okay, that would put you above what the average woman burns. So you've got to take that into consideration. But, okay, it gets worse. It gets worse, okay? If you have insulin resistance along with your PCOS, your average metabolism is actually around 1,100 calories. Okay, this was all found out in a study back in 2009. And what they found was the average person with PCOS and insulin resistance burns about 40% less calories at rest, sitting and doing nothing, than your average woman. Now, this can seem kind of bleak, right? It can make you feel like, well, is there hope? You know, if I'm burning almost 800, 700 or so calories less than someone else. Is there hope for me to be able to lose weight or to be able to see the success that I want to see? And I'm here to tell you there is, okay? Because the BMR is not your whole metabolism, okay? It's only a small part of your, well, it's a good proportion of your metabolism, but the truth of the matter is it doesn't make up your whole metabolism, okay? Other studies have looked at your whole metabolism, everything you burn, and found that the average woman with PCOS actually burns about the same amount of calories when we take certain things into consideration. And I want to look at those things today. Okay. So hope is not lost. We can still help you succeed. Okay. So we're going to get you there. Now, women with PCOS actually burn the same calories as the average lean woman if we do these 3 things. Okay. We exercise. Now, before I don't want to forget this. Before I get into these 3 things, okay, I want to make sure that if you want my help to be able to help you succeed in your goals, then go ahead and go to fatextractionmethod.com. Okay, you can schedule for or apply for a call, and then you and I can talk about your goals and try to figure out the best way to be able to help you reach your goals. Okay, but let's continue doing this now. The first thing we need to do is exercise 2, and I'll get to each of these, and then we want to eat more of something, and we want to do something throughout the day, okay? So we're going to go through each one of these 3 things, okay? So here's the 3 things we need to do. Number 1 is exercise to build muscle. Now, a lot of times when people think about exercise, they think about, I want to burn fat, I want to burn calories, I want to lose weight and things like that. Okay. With PCOS, you need to think a little bit differently. So going back to this study where they showed that the average woman with PCOS actually burns, about 700 calories less than the average woman at rest, right? What they also found was certain parts of their body had a lot less muscle mass. And so they're looking at the different muscle going, hey, this is actually probably why the metabolism is slower. It's not because hormones are messing things up in terms of metabolism. It's not because PCOS is like stopping you from burning calories or things like that. It's probably because of the amount of muscles that women have in certain areas of your body. Okay. So you need to exercise to build muscle. Now, more muscle, here's why. More muscle burns more calories. The more muscle you have in your body, the more calories you're going to burn throughout the day. And so we can start ratcheting up the amount of calories you're burning throughout the day. We can get you closer to that normal person. All right. Now, the other one is I want to make sure that you're not afraid of putting on too much muscle. Because when I talk about building muscle for women, I get a lot of pushback on this. I have women who reach out to me and say, oh, but I don't want to become a man. Well, we're not doing anything to make you a man. Or I don't want to get too muscular. Okay, now I totally understand that because the idea of too muscular is actually it's an individual thing. Right? It's your definition of what muscular is. I've had women that I've talked to and I said, oh, we're going to put on muscle. And they go, and I say, well, give me an idea what too much muscle looks like. And I remember sitting in a gym and this woman looked around, she goes, oh, that person, I'd like to look like that person. The person they pointed at was actually a semi-professional football player. Her biceps were about as big as my thighs. I mean, she was big and muscular and strong. And I said, you want to look like that? She goes, yeah, I don't want to get any more muscular than that. I said, we've got years of work to be able to get you to there. And I don't even know if genetically you can get there. She's like, really? It's like, yeah. So again, it's your definition of what muscular is. Okay. Does that make sense? Now, so don't be afraid to put too much on. And let me kind of explain. So here's kind of this analogy. Imagine you wanted to drive from Los Angeles to Denver. Okay, so here's the route you need to follow. From Los Angeles, you get on I-15, you travel up I-15 through Las Vegas, somewhere in the middle of Utah, you jump on, I can't remember, I think it's I-70, and you go over to Denver. And there you are, right? But here's what most women that I talk to who are worried about putting on muscle tend to do. They say, you know what, I want to drive to Denver, but I can't follow this path because that's the same path you would follow to get to New York City. Because to get to New York City, you'd do the same thing. You'd go up I-15, you'd get to somewhere in Utah, you get on, again, I believe it's I-70, and then you'd head all the way over to New York City, okay? But this sounds ridiculous, right? What would you do when you got to Denver? Wouldn't you just stop? Okay, and again, people come to me and say, well, I want to get toned, but I don't want to get bulky. But they believe that these are two separate things, when actually they're two things that are on the same path. You just, when you get to the level of toned you want, you just don't put on more muscle. You stop there, okay? But here's what I would like all the women I work with, all the women that I coach with who have PCOS, what I tell them is this: don't worry about putting on too much muscle. Here's what I would prefer you do. I would prefer that you go into the gym and say, I'm going to put on as much muscle as I physically possibly can and try to get as muscular as possible, right? Because as you do that, you will lose fat faster and faster and faster and faster, okay? And then once you get all the fat off you want, then you can turn around, look in the mirror and say, okay, do I want to keep this muscle? Do I want to lose the muscle? Where do I want to be? If you want to lose the muscle, okay, here's what you do to lose muscle, okay? You ready? You do nothing. That's it, right? To lose muscle, you stop exercising, you stop doing things. Now, I would not recommend you do that. I don't want you to completely stop exercising, but you lift less weight. Let me give you an example of this. Here's Elena. Elena came to me just before her wedding several years ago, and she said, hey, I want to lose some fat or I want to lose some weight for this. What do I do? And I said, let's lift weights. And she was a little concerned about that, okay? Now, she ended up losing, I think it was 27 pounds getting ready for her wedding. She looked amazing. It was great. It was wonderful. She continued to work with me for another 6 months. And over the next 6 months, finally one day she walked in and she goes, it happened. I'm like, what happened? She goes, my blouses are too tight for my arms. I put on too much muscle in my biceps. And I said, okay, well, here's what we're going to do. All of your upper body exercises that require you to use your arms, right? Anything that uses your biceps, what I want you to do is I want you to lift with less weight. So if you normally bench press with 40 pounds, I want you to bench press with 35 or 30s. Okay, do that. Well, the next week she came back to me and goes, oh, my arms are good now. It took her a week to lose the muscle she wanted to, and it took her months to be able to lose the fat she wanted to. But what I see people do is they're afraid of putting on too much muscle, so they hold themselves back when they're exercising so that they don't lose the fat that they want to lose. Right? So take that into consideration, okay? So if your goal is to lose fat, focus on putting on as much muscle as you can, and you'll lose all the fat you want to, okay? And then when you get to that point where you're as lean as you want to be, then you can reevaluate what you want to do with your muscle. I'll argue that the majority of people will actually look in the mirror and say, this is the way I want to look. Some people will say, okay, this is too much muscle. Perfect. Go ahead and take the muscle off, which will take less time than taking the fat off, okay? So step number one is build more muscle, okay? It will increase your metabolism. It'll help you burn fat even faster. Okay, number two is to eat more protein. Now, protein metabolizes different than any other thing. So we talk about carbohydrates and we talk about fats and all those different things. We always talk about proteins, carbs, and fats as if they're equal, right? Or maybe we say, well, carbs are the bad thing, right? But we don't necessarily talk about protein and its benefits because we do not metabolize proteins the same way that we metabolize fats and carbs. Fats and carbs are both used for energy, okay? Protein's main job is actually structure of our cells and muscle and hormones and enzymes. It actually is used for those things. It's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible source of energy. So we don't use it for energy very much. You know, the highest, if you were to take your total metabolism and say, okay, what percentage of your metabolism is using carbohydrates, what percentage is using fats, and what percentage is using proteins, what you'll find is this, okay? Proteins only amount to about between 5 and 15%. The highest that I've seen in research that metabolism that we use for protein, our metabolism uses for protein, is about 15%. And that's only when someone is running a marathon and they're at the end of their marathon, when they've used up almost all of their carbohydrates and now they're trying to use fats and proteins. Okay, we don't use proteins very well as fuel. So what we do with proteins instead is we store it as muscle and things like that. Now, here's kind of this interesting study. What this researcher, he's looking at protein all the time. He's releasing all these different studies on protein and what they do. And there was a recent one that I read. I couldn't find it to get you all the information, so I went back to a previous one they did. Kind of found the similar information. What they did is they actually had one group of people eat 500 more calories per day. Okay, 500 more calories per day. Almost all of that came from protein. So the high calorie or high protein group ate about 500 more calories. Now, thinking about that, you would think, well, the high protein group would gain more weight or gain more fat, right? Wouldn't you? Right? That's not what happened, okay? Here's what happened. The high protein group actually lost more weight and they lost more fat. Now, what does higher protein do for us? It does a lot of different things. Okay, number one is it lowers our appetite and our cravings. If you've ever heard of me talk about the whole fat extraction method, okay? The fat extraction method has 4 parts. Part number 1 is actually to lower your appetite and decrease your cravings. Then we work with your fat cells to try to stop or slow them down from storing fat. Then we try to get them to actually release more fat. And then we get your muscles actually using fat better so that you can lose fat. That's the whole goal, right? Well, what does higher protein intake do? Well, it lowers your appetite and it decreases your cravings, okay? Along with that, when we eat more protein, it automatically causes us to burn more calories. Now, it's not a lot, but it is some, okay? Because typically the general idea is this: when you eat food, if you were to eat 100 calories, you're gonna use 10 of those calories to be able to digest your food. That's it, okay? Now, if you were to eat 100 calories from protein, it's actually closer to about 15%. So about 15 calories versus the 10. So it's a little bit more, not a lot, but a little bit more. So it does increase your metabolism, okay? Now, okay, so those are the first 2. 1, build more muscle. 2 is eat more protein. Now, the third one is, excuse me, is do fat extraction exercises throughout the day. Okay, that's the big thing. Do fat extraction exercises throughout the day. So, well, what is this? So number one thing that does by doing these types of exercises, it increases your metabolism for a short period of time. If you can do them throughout the day, it will spike your metabolism several times throughout the day, so you can eventually burn more calories, right? Now, along with that, it also causes you to burn more fat. There was a study that was done that showed when people do these type of exercises, what happens is for the next 3 hours, and the only reason why we know 3 hours is because that's when the study stopped. If they had continued on for 8 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours, we may have seen something different. But what they found is in the next 3 hours, people burn more fat after doing these fat extraction type exercises, okay? Now, how do you do them? Well, number one, the one with all the studies is bikes. You can get on some sort of stationary bike or something like that and do that type of exercise. You can go out and cycle outside if you want. But if you don't have access to a bike, or like us, we're getting close to winter and riding outside is not safe on the roads when there's ice and snow everywhere, okay? So I'm not gonna do that outside. Now, if I have a stationary bike, cool, I can do that. But if I don't have access to that, well, you can do sprints, okay? Run up and down stairs, run up and down a hallway, something like that, right? Now, another thing you do is squats. One thing I like to do is just squat up and down as fast as I can for a couple of minutes, okay? Next is to run in place. Same type of thing, run in place for a couple of minutes. Those are the main things that work. So these are some ideas. Now, what does this do? It literally raises certain hormones that go to your fat cells, start opening up those fat cells so you start to burn more fat throughout the rest of the day. And this is why my programs have been so successful with people, is because we're not focused on the whole calories in and out idea. That is important, but that's not our focus. We're doing those things. We are lowering calories by increasing certain foods. We're not lowering food, we're just lowering calories. Actually, people tend to come to me and say, I'm eating way too much food now, but I'm losing weight. This is weird. It's because we dropped their calories down, okay? We also work with their metabolism, not necessarily raising their metabolism, getting their metabolism to start using the right types of fuels. And this is why I tend to see better results with my clients. Now, here's another one, push-ups, another idea. Okay, now this is an example here. We've got Cami. She reached out to me a little while ago. She has fibromyalgia and some other things going on that make it so she cannot do exercise for long periods of time. So she does 8 minutes of exercise. She does these fat extraction type exercises, and she does them 4 times a week. Total of 32, is that right? 32 minutes of exercise per week. And she's already lost 42 pounds, okay? So this stuff works. Now, if you would like my help in either creating a plan or helping you figure out the path and the road you need to follow, go ahead and go to fatextractionmethod.com. Okay, fill out an application and we'll get on the phone and we'll talk more about your goals and what we need to do to help you out. Okay, all right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. And I will talk to you all later.
Hey there, I hope you liked this video and I hope you got something from it so that you can go and apply today. And if you did, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like this video. And more importantly, go ahead and share it with your friends so that they can get the same benefit that you have. Thanks for watching, and I've got more to share with you in the coming weeks.